What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News. The Cantina Hour is live. Welcome to everybody. Hey, how you guys doing? It's Star Wars month, man. It's Star Wars month. What need I say more about Star Wars than this? We have a really great guest today. Ryan Drost is going to be joining us to talk about his comic book, Stealth Hammer. But in addition to that, he's also a wicked big Star Wars nerd like we are. So we're going to be talking about the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary. We're going to be talking about the Bad Batch, which just wrapped up its entire series. So if you want to hang out with us, man, make sure you subscribe, like, share. Go ahead, share with a friend if they like Star Wars, if they like comic books. And then, as always, man, tell your mom, tell your dog, tell whomever you need to. We're hanging out, having a good time tonight in our Cantina Hour. This Cantina Hour is brought to you by our Patreons, who without you guys, we would not be able to do things like this. So thank you guys so much. May the 4th is this Saturday, but in addition to it being the holy day for yours truly, it is also free comic book day. So please make sure you're going to your local comic book shops. Take your kids, take your grandma, take whomever, take your rabbit, take your skunk. I don't care what animal you have or kid you have or family member you have. Take them to your local comic book shop. It's free comic book day, man. Lots of good stuff. So without further ado, my beer of the week is brought to you by Lauren. When I went to see her this past February for MegaCon, little Chewbacca action. It is from Hourglass Brewing. It is called Chewy. It's a sour ale with pineapple, hibiscus, and vanilla. And yeah, it's a fruited sour ale. So I'm going to throw this to Lauren to talk a little bit more so that way I can go ahead and share this on one of the good social media sites and you can get the goods in this beer.
Yes, so this beer, I got it in my Cad Bane glass because Cad Bane does make an appearance in Bad Batch, which we are talking tonight. So our glass, the whole point of their name is it's their beer, or it's our beer, their glass kind of thing. But if you're ever in Orlando, this is a great geek themed brewery to visit. They have one location in Longwood, one location in the Hourglass District in Orlando, and you can just look around the brewery and there's so many Star Wars things. I'm not gonna lie, I did not try this beer before I bought it. I solely bought it for the label, but it is a great, very light. I guess it would be a good Florida sour. This would be fantastic on the beach or maybe on a sand planet. So,
I don't like sand. It's coarse. It's rough. It gets everywhere.
That's a telltale sign of a villain because not only does Anakin not like sand, Dexter doesn't like sand either.
Really? I
grew up in Miami.
Dexter. I forgot about Dexter. It's kind of like Dre. You forgot about Dre?
You could never forget about Dexter.
I never forget about Dexter. I guess I probably did. I lied. But
Hello, Dexter Morgan.
have a really great guest with us tonight who is here to help us talk about Bad Batch, Phantom Menace, but even more importantly, he's written some comic books, man. And his comic book that we're going to be talking about a little bit first is called Stealth Hammer. So to talk about that, introduce himself. Ryan, welcome to the show, man. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Let's learn a little about you. Where did your geek origin story? How did this comic book come to life? Like, spill the beans, man.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Right before we went live, I was like, came across your guys' show, and it was like, okay, comic books and Star Wars and all that. I'm like, I got to get on the show. So my geek origin actually has a Star Wars start to it as far as like pop culture as well as comic books. So I did not get to see the original A New Hope when it was still called just Star Wars in the theaters. I was about 1 year old. But I found out at my 40th birthday that this movie I thought my dad took me to go see was Empire Strikes Back. Hear what it was, because I was telling him like all the memories I had from it and everything, and he was like, no, that was a re-release of Star Wars that happened in 1979. Because I remember like the theater had like people that dressed up as Darth Vader and stormtroopers and C-3PO. So yeah, and I was just like, and he's like, no, that was Star Wars. And he said, I knew you were a fan because he said you sat in the seat, you were like 3.5 years old, and you were just like,
and that was it. Get-go. All right.
Right. And ever since then, I've seen every single Star Wars movie in the theaters, including the re-releases, the Clone Wars movie, all animated movie, all of them. I've been there to see all of them. My very first comic book that I remember ever getting was they used to do like 3-packs in like toy stores and stuff like that. Of comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my very first one, I don't remember what the other 2 issues were that were in there, but the issue I remember very distinctly was Return of the Jedi, the very first issue with the purple cover, and it's got Luke and Lando and Leia all on there from the Jabba the Hutt scene. which is my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, that whole beginning of Return of the Jedi. So yeah, that was like my comic origin, my geek culture origin, all of that stuff wrapped up into Star Wars. And for me, it's like there's Star Wars and then there's everything else. So.
I kind of agree with you on that one. Like Star Wars kickstarted my pop culture love. There's something about us. I don't know what it is. Like you were three, I was probably about 5, and Star Wars was one of those things that was always on TV. And there's something just so beautiful about it, man. And it just makes you want to tell stories.
Yeah.
So many stories. And then such as like, kind of like Stealth Hammer, which is not like quite Star Wars, but it's a superhero tale that is exciting. So why don't you kind of tell us a little about Stealth Hammer?
Yeah. So, and there are some Star Wars influences in Stealth Hammer. I'll point some of those out. But to kind of what led up to Stealth Hammer happening was going back even a little bit further, still Star Wars influence. I've done a podcast myself, an audio podcast for the last 14 years called Star Joes, which is Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and we say everything in between from the 80s pop culture stuff. So I've been doing that for a long time. Well, after doing that for a while, I've interviewed a lot of creators, a lot of writers, artists, and everything else. And I started getting the bug of like, okay, maybe I'd like to create something myself. The name Stealth Hammer is actually my wife's real life nickname.
Oh, what?
I'd like to hear that origin.
Okay, is that one you can share with us?
Like, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, it's nothing bad at all. So she's a graphic designer, and she worked at an ad agency. And her boss one time had submitted some ideas to a client, and she's like, "Well, I have an idea. Do you mind if I submit it?" And he's like, "No, go right ahead." Well, the client chose her one idea over his several, and yes, Star Wars and G.I. Joe.
I knew as soon as you said it, I knew he is all about, he has a YouTube channel about like his G.I. Joe figures and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
Our boy Maynard, man, he is amazing. But yes.
But yeah, so anyways, so the next time her boss sent something out to say like, for submission ideas, he was like, watch out for Stealth. And that became her nickname for a while, was Stealth, which is a really cool nickname in itself. Then she went to work at another place, and she was in charge of brand compliance. So she had to be the one to make sure that the right font colors were used, fonts were used, the right colors were used, things like that. And so her boss was like, "Oh, you're gonna have to be the one that lays the hammer down. So I'm gonna call you Hammer." Well, she's like, "I already have a nickname." So she just put the two together. She became Stealth Hammer, and she's been known as that ever since. And so then for 1 year for her birthday, like a few years back, I had her commission drawn as a superhero, and it was supposed to be like Stealth Hammer. And gave it to her. She loved it. But once I saw it physically, I was like, okay, we've always been joking that this could be like a superhero, but maybe it really can be. And that's, as soon as I thought that, it kind of like the ideas just started flooding. And I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in a shopping plaza in Florida, and all of a sudden I just got hit with all these different ideas. And I just took my phone out, started jotting them all down, and like almost every single idea I wrote down that day made it into the comic. So
all good stories start in Florida.
Yes.
Tiger King.
So I'm assuming you had a crazy uncle. Maybe there's like the scientific dad out there then.
Right. So to give the audience the elevator pitch of what Stealth Hammer actually is, it's an all ages superhero adventure that takes place in a world of high-tech gadgetry meets supernatural mythology. So I relate it to like Stargirl, Miss Marvel in a world of
there are Stargirl vibes for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah.
And it's in a world of like Mega Man meets Jim Henson's Creature Shop. So
So there were actually a few 80s references I picked up. So obviously Ghostbusters is mentioned. Some of the dudes look like gremlins that you see.
Yes.
We also get a yellow VW Beetle.
Yes.
That gets transformed.
Yes.
And Grandma gave, this belongs in a museum.
Yes.
So I'm guessing you're a big 80s movies fan. I mean, based on your age too, that makes complete sense. So were there any other ones that you snuck in there that maybe we missed?
So no, nothing directly other than the ones you mentioned there. Ari the Elf, which is my little sidekick character.
Yes, I love him.
He's so much fun to write. I will tell you that straight up. But
I could see that.
But he's like my Yoda character. He speaks his own way. If you notice in in the first issue in the backup story, she's actually carrying him on her back in a back.
How did I not put that together? Yeah.
Little references like that. I have a lot of other references to other things like mythology and everything else. But yeah, when it comes to 80s stuff, absolutely different influences in there. But yeah, also the Labites, which are the little robot assistant droids, remind me. I didn't come up with a design for them. I just gave the idea, and my artist Joel Jackson drew them, and they remind me very much of the batteries not included little robots from that movie. So
Nice.
I also caught at the end of issue 1, you have a sign that says, Dagobah this way.
Yes.
I texted to Lauren right away. I was like, did you see this? And she was like, yes, I did. Like, that was the first thing I saw. And I was like, this is amazing. I knew right off the bat, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to get along really great. And
yeah,
just reading the comic book, like, oh
that was my friend and professional artist, comic book artist, Shannon Gallant. He's actually known as having the longest run of art on G.I. Joe or American Hero.
Oh, wow.
And I asked him if he'd be willing to do the back cover, because with my comic book, as you probably noticed, like, I cram it with as much art as possible. So that is actually the back cover of the physical issue. There's always a back cover with a new artist on the back. We always have a variant cover for the artist on the front if there's an alternate cover. But he drew that, and I didn't give him that input. He just put it in there because he knew I was a fan of all those things. So I think he played, if I remember right, he played a little bit with the name of Dagobah, though. He didn't want to.
It was a DE, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't.
You gotta change it enough.
Change it enough where like Disney's not coming after us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's less use the mouses on your doorstep, like open up.
That's the only one people have to be worried about these days is the mouse. Right. So I do have some questions about the mythology, but while we're on the art, this art was amazing, and there's a lot going on at the same time, and the art obviously influences the story. So how much back and forth was that to get what you imagined onto the page?
There's a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of concept art that was done previously before I met Joel, and then I met him, and he had everything I needed for this, because there's a lot of little hints to things in the background, and I needed someone that could draw cartoony but also super detailed, because I refer to my writing as like Claremontian, because Chris Claremont was always known for putting little Easter eggs that he would revisit later. So I do a lot of that also. So there's a lot of things in the issues that if you see in the background or a character mentions or something like that I plan on playing around with later. And but there's a lot of back and forth. It's a very, very much a collaborative effort. And an example of that was the Labites. I love telling the story about how Joel was drawing Dr. Everett, which is Stealthhammer's dad. And he was like, he sent me this picture of him, and it had this little robot sitting on his shoulder. And I was like, oh, I like that. I texted him, and he's like, yeah, I figured like he's this absent-minded type professor type character, so maybe you'd have these little robots that kind of help him out. And I was like, yeah, I like that. Go with that. And then next thing I know, I get the cover to issue 1, and it's got 8 of them on there. And I texted him, I was like, Joel, you do know, like with me as the writer, I can't just let these be just random robots that are just on the cover. Like, I have to come up with names for all of them, personalities, what their functions are, and everything else. And I'll see if I could find it here. But my wife and I actually did, for the first issue, we did a behind-the-scenes concept art book. Yep, right here. And you can kind of see right there. Yeah. This is my guide to who all the Labites are, so I don't forget who they are. And I can always send it to Joel and say, like, hey, this is the character in the script and stuff like that. Because writing a script is always really interesting with a comic book, because you're writing to your artist. You're not writing it to your audience.
Right.
As far as what's actually be shown. So, but yeah, a lot of collaborative efforts that go on. So.
Well, and also when you're giving, life to those background characters, I feel like that's how you make a world kind of grow.
Yes.
So how far do you see ideally this world kind of growing? Because you have 2 issues done, and you're kickstarting the 3rd issue right now.
Correct. Yeah, so I have the first 6 issues completely mapped out. I can tell you what happens in every single issue of the first 6 issues, but it is a larger world, and that was the big thing for me, is I wanted to tell the type of story that I grew up with. I mentioned Jim Henson earlier. I mean, I grew up with Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and
Oh,
like,
dude, Labyrinth, yes. Dark
yeah,
Crystal, yeah.
all that stuff. And like, and I'm a big Wizard of Oz fan and Alice
Oh,
in
This is my mom's
Wonderland
favorite
and
movie,
stuff like
actually.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like those types of stories always start small with like one or just a few characters, and then you just kind of keep expanding. And if you notice, like the first issue, it's kind of a golden age throwback where it's like, okay, you have a superhero, she gets her power, she fights the bad guy, end of story. But there were little like nuggets thrown in there. The second issue is the one I always surprise people with, because they read that, they think they know where the story's going after the first issue. They read the second one and realize how big this world's about to get. Because there's that 2-page spread where it's just like this huge, while Ari's telling this story, you just kind of get this glimpse of how big this world's going to be. So I actually have plans for stories to go out, probably a good 30 to 40 issues.
Oh, wow.
And I do have an ending in mind. Like there is an ending that is very definitive. I know like this is what's going to happen. It's going to bring it all together. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun along the way.
So this isn't lost. You
This is
haven't.
not lost. There is an ending.
So I want to go back to, you mentioned the mythology. So I noticed you have Slavic mythology and Roman
Yes.
mythology and Icelandic mythology. So how did that come about? Was that something you were always kind of into, diving into these different,
Yes.
heroes and villains?
Yeah, I've always
before
been
superheroes?
I've always been a huge mythology fan. Like, so I was the kid that went to the library and got the Greek mythology book, and then took that
That's
back.
my
and-
daughter. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and it's like okay. And
She's
then
now a history major.
Oh, awesome! See, perfect. But yeah, it was always one of those things where it was like I loved learning about all different world mythologies. So when I was writing this, I was like, I want to bring that in here because there's so many great characters out there. Some of them have been done before. We're putting our own spin on some of them, but some of them I feel like have never been touched. And one of them was the character Marzana. And the funniest thing and she's the Polish deity of death. I know I'm doing an all ages comic, but yes, she is the Polish deity of death.
Well, I mean,
Hey,
to
every
be
Disney
fair,
movie
like,
starts with death.
I was
Right.
about to say every Disney movie starts with the parent
Right,
dying. So,
right.
I
As
mean,
long as we're not showing like blood and guts and gore, we're all good.
Right. Yeah.
But again, that was to go back to the types of stories I grew up with because, again, like we mentioned Dark Crystal earlier. Dark Crystal is a very dark movie for a kid's
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, even
The
Labyrinth
80s
kind of
didn't
is
mess
too, to a
around,
degree.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, mythology is you have Percy Jackson was deals with like Greek
Right.
mythology. Like mythology is all about like, Zeus trying to, all of the gods try to kill each other. Like at
Yeah.
the base end of the day, like that's just how mythology goes.
They're
Yeah,
dark,
and then there's I have characters known as the wolf rats, which I just gave them mythological names, which is Chernabog and Belobog. And that was just kind of fun to do. I might play around with that a little bit more later on. But then one thing that was fun for me to do was I have this shape changer character named Shanzi. And that tried looking for a shape changer character in mythology that hadn't already been done like crazy. And there wasn't one out there. So I made up my own name for the character, and I've had so many people saying like, so was that a real mythological creature, that shape changer? I was like, no, that's one I made completely up on my own. It just sounds legit.
Yeah, you're the writer. It does sound legit. Yeah.
But that's the thing. You can take liberties and you can do what
Yeah.
you kind of want and put your own spin on things. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of art. And if everybody like followed the things to a T, then it's like, oh, we've heard this story before. It's what
Yeah.
is all about putting your own fun and spin on things. And
Yeah.
so when you created this, how did your wife take it? Is she as big of a nerd as you are? When you were like, basically, I'm making this comic book. You are the
Character's you.
inspiration. This is you in a book.
My wife is nowhere near even being close to being a nerd like I am. She's just extremely supportive of it. But
That's why we started this podcast. Funny,
Right.
That's how my husband is. Yeah.
She's she loves doing puzzles and crosswords and all that type of stuff. So in that respect, she's a bit of a nerd, but yeah, comic books and all that, she's just extremely supportive of it. And but yeah, when I went to go do this, we always had fun with it. And like I said, it was always one of those things like, oh, what would her powers be and all that type of stuff. And when I told her, I was like, I think we could actually do this as a real story. Now she's all in. Like if you look in the credits, she's actually she's not only inspired by her, but she's actually in the credits because she's a graphic designer. She came up with the logo. She came up with the title art. She does the credits pages. Any like PR promotion artwork that you see out there, she's the one that put it all together.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah, so we do a lot of work together to kind of get this out there. So this is her favorite comic book, and it will probably be her only comic book.
You know what? If there's only one comic book she reads, and if there's only one comic book like anybody reads, like, hey,
Right.
that's
Right.
true love, man. She's like,
Yeah.
that's all about the support at the end of the day, and it's
Yeah.
a really fun comic book at the same time. Like Lauren was saying, Ari is like a Where's Waldo kind of.
Yeah.
He's a gnome type like creature that
Yep.
he's has his own
No,
personality.
he's not a
kinda
gnome.
almost-
He's an elf.
That's
You're right.
right.
He's an elf.
Yeah, don't
You're right.
insult
You're right.
him.
I was thinking. You're right. Don't insult him. There he is. For example, he reminds me of Gimli for just
Yeah.
his like attitude
Yeah.
from Lord of the Rings. If people really are into comic books and just like a really fun superhero-esque story, this is a fun one. We all have that crazy uncle. And
Oh
of
yeah,
course-
absolutely. You have to have the crazy uncle. There is a reason he's crazy. But you can also see Ari the Elf was actually inspired by this little plushie that's behind me here. My wife and I actually went to Iceland, and which is really cool. And they have a belief in elf culture there. And I found this little guy sitting in a shop, and I picked him up. I'm like, this is going to be a character. And I love that you picked up the Where's Waldo thing, because I was like, ooh, I like with the striped hat. He's got that Where's Waldo thing. I was like, we have to make sure he's at least in every issue, so people can look for him. But yeah, and there is a reason behind the hat too. We kind of get some of Ari's insight in issue 3 that we're doing the Kickstarter with right now into like, he's not really fond of the hat that he has, but it's given to him by somebody he really respects and looks up to, so that's why he wears it. The fun thing, so issue 1 and 2, I always say issue 1 was Stealthhammer's origin, and issue 2 was her learning about her legacy. Issue 3 is this flashback story. So they're on their way to Iceland. I'm actually pulling from my own life experiences. And she's going to meet the Council of Elders there. That's where Ari is trying to take her to, for her to learn how to become the hero, the guardian that she needs to be. And so I thought, instead of like, ooh, boom, issue 3, they're in Iceland, I was like, I want a passage of time. So in issue 3, Ari is telling Stealthhammer, which her name is Jamie, his journey to meeting her, like how he started and how it all led up to her being there. The great thing for it is it's a story that can be read by itself and be enjoyed, but for those that read issues 1 and 2, there's a lot of similar beats that we saw in those issues, but now we're seeing it from Ari the Elf's perspective. So an example is in issue 2, if there was a police station scene and there was a judo student of Jamie's who was in there talking to the police officer, saying there was this gnome character that hopped out with these muggers and everything else. Well, in issue 3, we actually get to see that scene played out. So there's just like these nice little callbacks to things that we saw in the first 2 issues.
I did notice in the first issue you do a little jump forward and then you come back.
Yeah.
Which is nice because it kind of starts to fill in holes at the same time, creating new mysteries.
Yes.
Because one of the first things I noticed was, okay, there's a history to this family.
Yes.
There's, the father wasn't just like, hey, let me just create all these things for you real quick so you can go do this was strategic.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically one of the things that's revealed in those issues is that the grandmother had disappeared, and when she disappeared, things kind of got quiet. So he kind of always felt like he was always preparing, but he always felt like, okay, I think things are okay now. Like, my mom's gone, I don't know where she's at. She's been lost for the last 5 years, and of course you fear the worst at that point. But he's like, I think things are okay, and then his daughter gets these powers, and he realizes she wouldn't be getting these powers if things were okay. So,
right. Yeah. It's like, gamma radiation should have killed Bruce Banner, but it didn't. Why didn't it?
Didn't.
Right. Exactly.
I do like how in some of it, it's like her fingers are kind of bending in things when she first gets the powers, and she's like, what's going on? But she takes it all in stride. Like, they're surprisingly cool. Her dad's like this crazy scientist, and the neighbor's house is blown up.
I love the neighbor.
The neighbor's like this grouchy man. He's like, what are you doing over there? And she's just explaining to Kyle, we blew the house up, half of it. And he's like, that's a pretty valid reason. I mean,
totally valid reason. Yeah. And every time his house shakes now, he's just like, okay,
what are you doing?
Right. And the inspiration for him, I thought of, I'm trying to remember Carl from Family Matters.
Oh yeah.
and then also Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace.
Oh, Mr.
Oh,
Wilson.
that's honestly, I kept thinking,
I
like,
see
what
with
is
the
he reminding
mustache.
of? And I
Yeah.
was thinking
Yeah.
Incredibles, and I'm like, no, Incredibles, the kid's waiting for things to happen. That is who it is. I kept
Yeah.
was thinking of Mr. Wilson, 100%.
Yeah, so
That's so
this is
funny.
this is Mr. Fredericks, and if you notice, like they're so used to him being grouchy, they just kind of like wave him off, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
nice seeing you," and like,
Well, and the flowers too. Mr. Wilson had
Yeah.
flowers
Yeah.
as part of the garden club.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's a really good comic. So you're on Kickstarter now for
Yes.
issue 3. Where can people go, and how much longer do they have? What kind of stretch goals do you guys have to complete this comic?
Yeah, so right now we don't have any stretch goals. I will tell you though, so as of right now, according to Kickstarter, we have reached our funding, which is fantastic.
Hell yeah.
However, I will tell you there's one backer who backed it really high, and I found out that this is going on in Kickstarter where there'll be these people that go and back it really high and then either back out at the last minute or their funding won't go through. So I'm pretending that particular backer, I'm hoping it's real. I'm hoping it's fantastic.
I hope it is, yeah.
But I'm pretending as if that money isn't there. So we're still probably, in my mind, we're still like a few $100s away. We have some amazing rewards, but May 7th is the ending. It'll be May 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern time is when it ends. So we still have plenty of time. You
got 1 week, kids.
Yep. And but yeah, we have some like incredible rewards. You can get and every little bit helps. So we have the digital comic. We have up to like you can get a combo pack where you get both covers, you get like stickers, some prints, and things like that. One of the a couple of the rewards that I really like that we have is I always do the the script. And you can get that. And what I do is I take the actual script that I wrote that I sent to Joel for drawing and a letter for putting the words in and everything, who's Dave Sharp, who's done all 3 issues. And Dave Sharp is a huge veteran in the industry. He's worked on
Oh, yeah.
If you think of any Marvel or DC title out there, he's worked on it. But what I do is I go back into that script and I add little comments and notes in the margins for the backers, so they can kind of get an idea of what I was thinking on that page or what I was going for and things like that. And then I sign it and send it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a really fun one. And we do have the scripts for issues 1 and 2 as add-ons. So if that's something you really like, I'm a big behind-the-scenes type person. So
I am too. I love knowing how things work.
Yeah.
Like, that's how my brain works.
Yep. Now, you guys saw the artwork. You saw how crazy Joel can fit a bunch of stuff in.
Yeah.
One of our rewards, I'm going to just mention 2 other rewards because they're both related to his artwork. One of our rewards is something I asked him to do, which is I said, I want to do a special print for this. There'll be just 50 of them, and they'll be numbered. They'll be signed by me. They'll be signed by Joel. Very high quality and everything. But I said, I want this epic battle scene. Just in case we never get to the very end of this story, for some reason, I want to show this one big battle scene. And I said, here's all the heroes, here's all the villains, go to town. And I said, the only other instruction I gave him was, I said, you remember Rocky 3, at the end of Rocky 3, Rocky and Apollo are just about to throw down, and then all of a sudden you get that freeze frame of them like that. Yeah. So I said, that's the scene I want. I want the heroes and the villains just about to throw down, and we freeze frame on that. And you can see the pencil work on the Kickstarter, and he went nuts. And it's gonna be fully colored once we're all done and everything. It's gonna be this beautiful piece that he fit probably more characters in than I could possibly imagine. And then the other thing is we also have a reward where if you really like his artwork, you can get a commission from him. And he does any character you can imagine. So he's done some amazing pieces for people that have backed it. And I think very reasonably priced. It's that one's on the higher end. It's at $125, but you're not getting just him to do the
You're getting artwork, yeah.
You're also getting the comic. You're getting a bunch of the stuff that came before it, along with him doing a commission for you. And typically commissions are a lot more than that. So
oh yeah. So, especially from well-known artists, really good artists. That's really odd. I can't. We love to bring people in and talk about their comic books and the things that they're doing. And this comic book is a lot of fun. It's for all ages. I'm going to share this with my son, who has been really big into comic books. It's a very great read, fun, colorful, beautiful, and it's a good take on a superhero. So I highly recommend people get to the Kickstarter. All you got to do is search Stealth Hammer in Google. It takes you straight there. Everything's there. But if for some reason you can't find it, kickstarter.com/Stealth Hammer.
And
That's where it is.
you can even go to the Stealth Hammer website, stealthhammer.com, and there's a link right there for the Kickstarter as well. So we make it super easy for people to find it.
That's the beauty of it. People can be like, I can't find after one search. Boom, there you go,
Google, you can
stealthhammer.com.
always find it. Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
But you also talk some Star Wars, so
Yes.
let's shift
Oh,
gears
yeah.
to some Star Wars talk. So before we get to the Bad Batch, which we all kind of finished today, man,
Yes.
it's the 25th anniversary of somebody special. Our good friend Jar Jar Binks. This is the 25th anniversary of
So
Jar
you
Jar
give
Binks,
people a heads up before you post that.
and
That's
Misa
scary.
back to theaters this weekend is the 25th anniversary of one of my favorite lightsaber battles. Probably the music that gets me more amped up than like any other music. The Duel of the Fates. It's the Phantom Menace, man. It's back in theaters.
Yep.
I saw this movie when I was 9 years old. I know, say it, ha ha ha. I make old jokes to Lauren. She can make the young jokes. But I was a youngling at the time, and I went to the midnight release. How did I stay up until like 3 a.m. as a 9-year-old? I don't know. Probably lots of Mountain
Candy.
Dew, Surge,
Yeah, candy and soda.
candy.
Sugar.
I was hyped up off the pod racing
Surge.
scene.
Saying Surge is aging yourself.
Like it was lots of really good stuff. So I saw this in theater. So I want to know. We'll start with Lauren first. I know you're new to the Star Wars universe. That's how I want to start. Lauren,
I
you
was
saw this
probably-
with
I did
very
see this
different
movie.
glasses than
I did,
I
yes.
saw it as a Star Wars nerd, and probably Ryan at the same time. So I want to know, like, what was your initial thoughts on Star Wars: The Phantom Menace?
I believe we had already. No, I watched this before we started this podcast. My
You're like,
first
what the
thought,
hell is a Sebulba?
like, what is a midi-chlorian?
Jessica
I
Sebulba?
remember,
What?
okay, so if anybody who's been listening to us for a while or knows me personally knows I was not into Star Wars until a few years ago. So I will give a quick origin story of my Star Wars experience. 10 years ago, I had never seen anything Star Wars other than the first movie because my mom made me watch it when I was in middle school. It was not my cup of tea. Why are you making us watch this old movie, Mom? And that was it. Then I live in Orlando. I am a local annual pass holder. Hollywood Studios decided to gut half their park to turn it into Galaxy's Edge. I'm watching the fireworks. Darth Vader comes on. I go, this is giving me no emotional feels. I don't like this. The fireworks at Disney always give me emotional feels. I look to my daughter, who was probably 13 at the time, maybe 14 at the time. And I go, we have to watch these movies if we want to enjoy this park. So we started watching the movies. Then we start this podcast, and Matt goes, you have to watch the cartoons. And the next thing I know, I'm reading
We just did
the
an
novels
episode
and
on Dark
reading the
Disciple
comics, and yes,
that comes out on Monday, and now
and
she's
falling in love with Grand Admiral Thrawn because he's the best character ever.
she's reviewing Star Wars comics. Look, we did it, guys. We did it.
So the first time I
Ladies
watched
and
it was
gentlemen,
kind of
we
one of
got 'em.
those. Okay, I remember the original movies, and also when you watch the first one though, like years after it came out, because I probably watched the first one 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I'd have to Google when they started to switch everything at Galaxy's Edge or at Hollywood Studios. And it was cheesy because they had changed all of these things. And, I enjoyed it, but I didn't fall in love with it. It wasn't until I honestly started watching the cartoons that I truly fell in love with it, because to me, Anakin was not great character development. But when I watched episode 3 with the Clone Wars and I saw the character development, that's when I truly fell in love. So I did not have any emotions watching the first one. I remember when the first one came out because our local Taco Bell was decked to the T with young
Oh my God. Do you
Anakin.
remember when Pepsi cans were all Star Wars?
Yes.
Taco Bell? Like, those were the glory days. I'm kind of glad Coke's bringing it back with the Marvel. I don't drink soda, but I would like collect these cans for no reason other than to like.
Yeah. I took a
Yeah.
picture
These
of Logan
characters, like-
holding the Wolverine one, but I didn't buy it.
You literally had like Pepsi cans with young Anakin's face on them. You had Obi-Wan. Like, those were the glory days, man.
Yeah.
So I think Ryan's probably gonna have a much better answer.
Yeah, so you kind of heard mine, but Ryan, did you go opening weekend? What was your love with this movie?
Oh, so I mean, I had not had Star Wars as a movie for a long time at that point.
Yeah.
So I was not 9 years old. I was at my first job out of college at that point, and but yeah, I was super excited. I was like just so pumped for a new Star Wars movie coming out. And I remember I took the day off from work to see it opening night and went to the theater to buy tickets for everyone, because back then you couldn't just buy tickets
Back
online.
then, yeah, you had to like fight for theater seats, man.
You had to like go wait in line to get your tickets in advance, your paper tickets, and then you would go to the theater later that day to go
And have to wait in line to get seats.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It was a better time.
Yeah, so I had a bunch of coworkers that wanted to go. I was the only one off that day, so I went and got the tickets for all of us. Yeah, got the tickets for all of us, and yeah, we got there, and the theater was just packed. I mean, it was just immensely packed. And the second the scroll happened, there was just cheering.
Bam, ba-da-bam. Yeah.
I mean, it was well over a decade that we had seen a Star Wars movie.
I mean, the last time we had a Star Wars was when George Lucas messed with the OT trilogy and really released, his version where he updated the special effects.
Last new one had been 83.
83.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's almost 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was at all the special edition releases opening night as well, and that was fun. I had some good and some bad changes that were made. But yeah, so with Phantom Menace, I remember I watched it, and Lauren, very similar to your experience. I was like, okay, there's some really cool moments in here, but there was a lot of stuff where I was just like, that's not developed really well. Anakin really wasn't Hayden Christensen just didn't kind of it wasn't Hayden Christensen at that time. It was
Jake Lloyd, man, our star from Jingle All the Way, one of my favorite movies ever.
The Natalie Portman, I had a hard time because I knew who they were. I was like, are we really doing this?
Yeah, Liam Neeson and stuff like that. But the lightsaber battles, I love the pod race. I mean, the pod race is fantastic.
I do too, so much.
I know there's a lot of people that don't care for that, but I really enjoy that.
I thought the pod race was great. Yeah.
It was the politics stuff that I was like, can we get away from that?
Negotiation.
We did have the Ewok TV movies prior to it, and I do have a special place in my heart for those. But as far as actually in theaters, we didn't have anything. So
there's nothing new.
Now, one thing that I did go see related to Phantom Menace, and I don't know how many people saw this, but do you remember they then later on did the 3D release of Phantom Menace?
Oh, yeah.
And they were talking about how they were going to do all of the movies as 3D releaes. So I was like...
Oh, God, 3D was all the rage then.
Yeah. So I went
I'm so glad we moved past 3D.
Yes. But I remember I went and saw it in 3D, and it was all right, because, it wasn't designed to be in 3D. But it was fun
I can just picture
there was no moments where, Darth Maul turns his lightsaber and spins it at the camera.
Yeah.
The only movie you have to see in 3D is Harold and Kumar's Christmas movie. That is the only movie worth seeing in 3D.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so, I went and saw that, and then all of a sudden, then Disney bought Star Wars, and I was like, I guess we're not getting the rest of these in 3D. So, but yeah, and the thing that I love too, and this relates to exactly what you're talking about too, Lauren, is the thing I do love about the prequels, and I do have a love for the prequels. There's, like I said, there's some spots here and there that
Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie. I'll say
okay, there you go. The thing I love though is how much other stuff came because of the prequel. So you have the Clone Wars and all that.
Quinlan Vos came from just a character in the background of episode 1.
Dude, yeah.
So I have something to show you that's related to Quinlan Vos. I just got this recently. It's a piece of artwork.
Oh, we're going one shot. Here we go.
Yeah, so if you know the artist Jan Duursema, she is well known for drawing Star Wars comics. And she did draw Quinlan Vos, and she drew another character with Quinlan Vos in the comics called Aayla Secura. And I got this piece here just a few days ago, which is Aayla Secura and Ahsoka Tano.
God damn, I love Ahsoka.
That's
so
gorgeous.
Much. That's amazing.
She is my favorite Star Wars comic book artist, easily. And she is super nice. But yeah, she sent that in the mail to me, and I just got it this week. So I was like, this thing's beautiful. So I'm going to get it framed. It's going to hang up, all that type of stuff. But
nice. Yeah, we actually did not, because we actually right before this recorded an episode about Quinlan and Ventress, mainly going into Dark Disciple, which is why I happen to have the book right here. But we actually did not go into that character, but he does have a relationship with that character in the comics. We focus mainly on the TV shows and the movies and what's definitively canon at this point. Yeah. Because it's hard with, I want to read the old Thrawn books, but I'm like, the newer ones are considered canon now, but how long will they be canon? Who knows?
Yeah. And we did get Aayla Secura in the Revenge of the Sith. We saw her.
I hate her kill scene though.
I
It is
do
one of
too.
my least
She dies so
favorite moments.
unceremoniously. She's just like walking
easily.
in.
Yeah.
It's dramatic. She could have, I mean, it was like some woman in a black and white courtroom drama from the 40s. Oh, like it was terrible.
And it kills me too because of the comics, she became one of my favorite characters.
She was right.
I mean, she's done
badass.
so well in the comics, in the Dark Horse comics and stuff.
Yeah.
And then to see her, I was like, oh, we're gonna see her live action, and we saw that. I was like, can we get like maybe a little? I would love to see like a live action
Redemption.
series. With,
I mean,
like,
the Clone
her
Wars
and
does pretty
Quinlan or
good.
something would be amazing.
Yeah.
So
I'll take
The Clone-
anything live action with.
yeah,
Quinlan,
Clone Wars
honestly.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, Clone Wars, which brings us into the Bad Batch. You've mentioned you kind of brought in
King
the
of
Clone Wars. So
Segues.
what's your relationship with the cartoons? Was it something that you were turned on to right from the start, like you were excited for, or is it more of like, got to ease into over time?
Anytime I hear something Star Wars is coming out, I'm excited for it. Now,
Oh,
whether I'm
same.
still excited after I see it is sometimes a different story. But very rarely am I not excited after seeing something.
What about the
Star Wars.
Christmas special?
Christmas special is
Best of all time. What are you talking
that's,
about?
That's what I
That's the
gauge
goat.
everything bad on is as bad as the Christmas special.
It's the ultimate variety show, man. It really is. It has everything.
Oh yeah, I know. And I grew up with all those actors and stuff like that are in it. But I remember watching it, and I remember telling my buddy that how bad it is, and he was just like, it can't be that bad. And I said, I'm telling you right now, it's going to trick you at the beginning, because at the beginning it looks really cool because you got Han and Chewie and the
And
Millennium
you get
Falcon
some really creepy Ewoks.
and stuff like that going on. And it looks like it's kind of cool, and then it goes really bad after that. And he's like, no, it can't be. And we did an episode of Star Joe's where we watched it live and commented during watching it, and it was his first time watching it. He had never seen it before. And we got about like a third of the way into it, and he turned to me and he's like, why did you make me do this? And I said, I did not make you do this. I warned you to
I
not
tried
do
to
this.
tell you.
Like when I bring a friend to hot yoga, like halfway through, they're like, I'm going to murder you.
Exactly. And to this day, he still says to me, he's like, I still blame you for that. And I was like, you cannot blame me for that.
I
like a
warned
car
you, to
accident
be
that you
fair.
can't-
Like,
The grandpa scene watching the day.
Yeah.
We're getting too off track.
Yeah.
You'll have
No.
to come back in December.
You're totally fine. But yeah, when I heard Clone Wars was coming out like that, and just to be clear for me, and it might be the case for a lot, I'm sure it's the case for a lot of people, like, to me, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, and Rebels is just one big animated series. I mean,
that's definitely fair. That's definitely fair.
Like, it's just all tied into each other. You can see a lot of the
Rex
same characters.
carries it
And,
through.
I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
characters come in and out of each
Right.
series. There's a lot of callbacks, a lot of tie-ins. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, when I saw Clone Wars was coming out, I was super excited. The animation at first threw me for a little bit because I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't that I
Same.
didn't like it, but it threw me off a little bit. And then as I watched it, I was like, this is really cool. And I feel like it got better as it went too.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Because I think they realized their target market was not just little kids. I felt like
Yes.
there was like a shift, because when I was watching it, I was like, it took me a little bit because I wasn't big on animation if it wasn't like a Disney movie. And Matt's like, no, you just got to get through it. And I felt like there was all of a sudden a shift where I like genuinely
Well,
started to enjoy it.
I didn't enjoy Clone Wars at first because all the episodes are kind of out of order.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I kind of Googled, like,
That's
hey,
Star Wars in
the
general.
order to watch the episodes, and you're kind of jumping around.
Yeah.
That's when I truly fell in love with the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Rebels, kind of the same. Like, the first season was very kid geared, but from season 2 on, it's very much, this is a serious show. And then obviously we get Bad Batch, which is starting off with Order 66, which I could watch. If you just give me nothing but
With
Order
Kanan.
66 for the rest of my life, I would gladly watch.
Well,
Jeez, that's dark.
before we get into Bad Batch itself, but like Clone Wars, the last 3 episodes of Clone Wars to me is some of the best
the best Star Wars ever. Oh my
done.
God.
Live action or animated. It's
This man
just-
is cooking. He's in Chef Gordon Ramsay right here. Yes.
Well, so if there was a point where I watched everything, and then maybe it was 2.5 years ago, I was like, I'm going to watch everything in chronological order. And I literally watched those last few episodes, and I did that. I Googled it where I knew where to pause and go back to Revenge of the Sith. And I paused and I went back, and it is so much better that way. It is so amazing.
It is.
The whole sequence where,
Because-
go ahead, Lauren. Sorry.
No, he told me I had not watched Clone Wars, and he goes, just watch the last episode of Clone Wars that with the Vader's Vader, and you see
man.
Anakin, and I watch it, and I'm like, okay, and he's like, so, and I'm like, okay. And then I watched the whole series and went back and forth, and then I'm all in the feels, and I'm like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, you need that history to really get those feels in there. Yeah.
Like the whole Vader coming down, like the clones where they won't fire on the clones. It's set to stun. They're not going to kill each other. The ship goes down. The helmet sitting on the sticks. The Vader coming down, looking at the owl that he knows is Ahsoka, finding her lightsaber. You see the glimpse of his eyes. Like, it is. And then, oh man.
And then, like you said, then we get into Bad Batch in the Order 66, where we see Kanan. Yeah, I was like, this is unreal. Which made that comics price go way up.
Well, real quick, we have a comment. I never actually watched these shows, but did you guys watch any of the 80s Droids and Ewoks animated shows?
I did watch those. Ewoks has the most annoying intro song ever to any cartoon.
Worse than My Little Pony?
Yes.
Oy.
It literally goes Ewoks, Ewoks.
That's tough. Oh no.
But the show itself is cute and it's a lot of fun. I actually have an animation cell from the Ewoks cartoon, so I did love it. Droids I like a little bit more than the Ewoks show, because the Droids, it was a lot more adventure, like progressive story going on, where Ewoks was kind of very episodic. It was like, okay, cute little thing happens and they have to deal with it. So.
And then they eat some stormtroopers.
Right, they do.
That's the part no one remembers. Everyone's like, "Oh, the Ewoks are like these cute
dark,
little teddy bears," and I'm like,
"No,
all those helmets had people in them before, right?"
Right, and they were about to eat.
They were about to roast Han Solo.
Yeah,
they were roasting him over an open fire, style.
Right.
But going into Bad Batch though, man, like, what were your thoughts? So the season 3 finale just aired this Wednesday. It's series finale at that.
Yeah.
What did you? So for me personally, I will say Bad Batch didn't connect to me the way that Rebels and Clone Wars did. Like, I liked it a lot, but I didn't find it as emotional as this. There was something missing for me. What were your guys' thoughts on the Bad Batch?
Oh, okay. So for me with Bad Batch, I love when it comes to different characters and stuff like that, I love Jedi first, and then next is the troopers. And to then to take some of these clone troopers and make them a little different and put them together in this tight unit, kind of like the A-Team of sorts, which is what it kind of reminded me of. Good
description,
Yeah, I was
That's
like,
a good point, yeah.
I was all in from the beginning with that one, because I love that team that has to do something that's completely impossible, and they find a way to have it happen. I will say this last season is my favorite season. Like, there was very few episodes that were wasted. There were a lot in season 1 and season 2 that were those, filler episodes. They were still fun, but they didn't play much into the bigger story. Mm-hmm. But this last season, it was like almost every single episode had something to do with the larger story that they were telling. So
right. True. And I felt like they really took like Mando season 3 and we're like, okay, we're gonna play off that a bit. I mean, obviously you saw in the finale, and heads up to anybody watching or listening, obviously we're spoiling Bad Batch.
Oh yeah.
But they stopped it at the end and said divert that money to Stardust, and we all know what Stardust is. Yeah. But I did feel like,
Lauren, what is Stardust for those of us who have not seen Rogue One?
They talk about it more than just in Rogue One. Maybe because I read the Thrawn trilogy.
But for the uninitiated, Stardust is the Death Star.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This one made fun of me relentlessly years ago because I didn't know what a tauntaun was, and now look at me. He's like,
no, I wasn't making fun of you. I was legitimately saying, like, what if somebody out there is watching?
You and Sean laughed at me when I didn't
everybody knows what Project Stardust is, and there's somebody out there who's like,
you know how what the temperature of a tauntaun is?
Lukewarm.
But I love though that Star Wars can take one line and make a movie like Rogue One, or take that one line and be like, okay, this is the most hated line in all of Star Wars, is somehow Palpatine returned, and we're going to fix it in multiple shows. We're going to fix it in animation, because that's what they're doing. They're fixing that one line that everybody hated.
So here's the thing with that line too. I don't understand the hate for that line. I really don't, because here's the reason why I don't understand the hate for it. Those characters in that position would not know how Palpatine did return.
Right.
So in their mind, they're like, somehow he returned. Like, they don't know.
I guess this is the whole way he says it, where he's just so inconvenienced. He's like,
But he's
somehow
like that in the
Palpatine
whole movie.
returned.
Like
So-
Oscar
so-
Isaac was an ass to the girl from Jurassic
Right.
Park.
Right.
Like he was kind of an ass for a lot of that until
I don't
he
know.
realized
To me,
he
it's
was
just
being
kind
an
of
ass.
funny because you're like, he's just like, somehow he returned. But when you dig into the lore of Star Wars, Palpatine's whole goal was to live forever.
Right.
And so it would make sense, as much as I kind of shit on The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. It's more about the incoherence between storylines than anything else to me. But it does make sense that Palpatine's goal was to prevent death. So sure, why wouldn't he be cloning? They cloned him in the Legends novels all
Right.
the time. Like,
Right. Heir to the Empire, the very first book that came out was all about him trying to clone himself.
exactly. Like, he's all about cloning, man. This isn't new. Cloning is not new to Star Wars.
No, not at
It's
all.
not.
The
I will
second Obi-Wan said the Clone Wars in the first movie, clones were going to be involved somewhere.
I mean, they literally cloned an entire army off of a bounty hunter. Who's to say they
Right.
couldn't do that off of like
There
one
you
of the
go.
most powerful Force users in the galaxy?
Another one line, and look what that got us.
Right.
Like more than one movie, the show, like all of these things.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. That's amazing too. I love that. I mean, even going back to your comic with
Yeah.
this, one little robot, and now you can create this whole backstory. So I think that's really cool to play it backwards. But I will say that this season, like you were saying, there weren't filler episodes. I felt like this season was slow, but if they had sped it up anymore, it would have felt rushed. It was
Yeah.
like it needed to have that.
Yeah.
I thought the finale was fantastic, though. I really
finale was
truly
great.
enjoyed the
Yeah, the
finale.
finale was.
We also,
and I will say, because of how the show was, and you don't know what's happening with these characters, I didn't know if they were all going to make out of it.
well, yeah, I was
I
about to say, like, the
Thought
fact that
Wrecker was done for.
Yeah.
we finally got like a happy ending in Star Wars.
Right.
Is that allowed?
Although I will say, I was sad to not see Tech make a return. I thought somehow, some way, we were going to get
Yeah.
Tech back, and we.
I thought so,
never-
too.
and
They
we never
Uncle
did.
Bend him. He stayed dead.
Nope.
Yeah, he
He-
stayed dead, and
But-
he was one of my favorite characters too of the
He
Bad
was.
Batch.
Brown
So I was
eyes. Yeah, I wanted him
Yeah.
and Wanda Sykes to have a happily ever after.
But I mean, like, we finally get them, and then the whole, post-credit scene, if you will, with Omega and Hunter and everything, and then Omega's like, the rebellion needs pilots more than ever.
Yeah.
I personally want an Omega squadron.
I was just gonna ask, do you think there's any chance we'll get an Omega series now?
Oh, dude, we have to, right? She's a clone that they were trying to take to clone to see about midichlorians and all that stuff before they found Grogu. And now she snuck off and was like, hey, the rebellion needs pilots now more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
I
not going to just put that out there and not do something.
Right. I don't know that we'll get a series, but I'd be surprised if we don't see her again.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think we need to see her, but I could almost see a Star Wars series that's just called Omega.
Yeah, I can see that. Well,
Yeah.
and I will say, like, the first season, I kind of thought she was a little annoying. I didn't,
Yeah.
I hated her haircut. When
Oh, she was
showed up in
awful
this
in the
season with
beginning,
longer
without a
hair. I was
doubt.
like, yay. But I loved her character development, and I really liked Crosshair's character development. So I felt like while, some of these shows were slow, I really liked that. And the scene where Crosshair, who has not been around Omega as much as the other ones, when the what's the Zillow beast escapes,
Yes.
and they're like,
Oh,
"Do you think
yeah.
that was Omega or Tech, or not Tech, Echo.
Echo.
And both Wrecker and Hunter immediately Omega. I laughed
Yes.
aloud at that. I thought
I
that
did.
was
I
really
did too,
funny.
because they of course knew that's who did
Yeah.
it.
That's her
I
handiwork.
I was like cheering on the inside when I saw the Zillow Beast again. I was like, oh my god, what a fantastic callback to bring that creature
Yeah.
back again. And I love Crosshair. Crosshair is my favorite of the Bad Batch. So
Ooh.
it was Crosshair and then Tech. So when he turned on them, I was heartbroken, but I was like, he's got to come back to them again at some
Well,
point.
he has the most character development, I feel
Yeah,
like, out of
I
all
agree.
of them. Like, he is the up and then the down, and just,
Yeah.
he really does.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole, because obviously they thought that his brain chip had
Yeah.
worked, and when he was very much so like, nope, this is one. But I mean, it makes sense because even if you're not being controlled your whole life, you're following these orders. You said this was
Soldiers
a
follow
happy
orders.
ending, and in a way it is. But you look at Hunter, who's younger than Omega,
hmm
and he is an old man in that last scene.
I know.
And so it's
just like a teenager still. And
Yeah, it's like it's bittersweet, but
Well, it's a happy ending in regards to like how many times have we gotten a happy ending? Even Empire Strikes Back, like it's happy at the end, but is it like Darth Vader's? They
You
got
mean
Han
Jedi?
Solo. No, I'm talking about Empire Strikes
Oh.
Back, where they take Han Solo and Carbonite, they're gone, and then we get the whole scene where after Luke gets rescued, he's got his robotic hand. It's very much like the upbeat Star Wars music, and they're staring out into the galaxy. But they have Han Solo, like one of our
I guess
favorite
that's why I'm like
heroes.
looking at my
Is it a
Han
happy ending?
Carbonite
Like
can. I'm like,
it's a
Jesus,
happy
it
ending,
wasn't
but
happy
is it a
for
happy
everyone.
ending?
Yeah.
I guess Return of the Jedi is a happy ending because at that point everybody's celebrating the fall of the Empire.
Yeah.
But this was
Right.
as close to a happy ending, especially during the Clone Wars
Right.
transition to Empire
Yeah.
period, that you're going to get,
Yeah.
because
Well, it's
they're living
retirement
in
for them.
peace. Nobody's finds them. Yeah, they're retired. There's no more fighting for them. But Omega's like, no, the rebellion needs pilots. And now at this point, we're deep into the Rebels time period, and she's off she goes.
I also love the fact that in true Star Wars fashion, we had to have a character lose a hand.
Yes, Crosshair lost his hand, and like, oh my god, like, you thought we were getting out of here without any losing limbs. No, we are losing a hand, my friend. And then he just was like, boop, new hand. There we
But
go.
that
that's
was
the-
also the hand that was shaking, which
Yeah.
is mental, not physical.
Yeah, and that's like the worst thing you could do to a sniper too, is to take his hand
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
So like, so the fact that they could have this peaceful ending for themselves, like he doesn't need to shoot anymore. Like,
No.
I mean, and I love that was one of the things I loved with him is I do love the sniper characters. I don't know if you remember the movie Navy SEALs.
Oh, I know that movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there was the character that had the codename of God because he would
Yeah.
he was their sniper. He would shoot from above and everything else. And I just like always loved it because they would be like, God, you hear me? And the enemy was like, your God can't save you now. And then boom.
Pew.
Oh, that's dark.
Yeah, but the thing I love with Crosshair was like he would like throw like coins up or mirror type things up, and then he would shoot and they just bank them off of things, and like he was the sharpshooter. So for him to see that progression, like we were talking about the his character, like all of a sudden he's losing that one thing that made him special,
Right.
and now he completely lost it, but now he has peace. So it's a really awesome character growth.
And he was still
Yeah.
able to shoot the thing.
Yes.
Well,
100,
yeah.
yeah,
like,
at the very
just
end,
wait,
she
Oh
trust
yeah,
Omega.
hemlock.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Ooh,
It's-
Hemlock was a
it's-
jerk.
Oh
it,
yeah.
it bookends, and then it makes you feel like they finally perfected the Clone Wars animation. So I feel like we're not done yet. I feel like there's
Yeah.
so much more that they can do. Tales of the Empire is getting ready to come out, which kind of has some of that animation this weekend.
I am so
And I'll never
excited
get
for
enough.
that.
I want Old Man Rex.
Yes,
Dude, like there's so
I
many
do,
stories.
too.
Like Rex's story is not ended yet. Omega's story is not ended yet. You still have Hera and like the entire crew there with Zeb and everybody. Like Zeb's still alive at the end of. Did we
I
see
felt
him
like
in?
Ahsoka was just a tease.
Yeah, like
I
we
wanna
have
get-
so many stories.
I honestly, now after seeing this season, I honestly want to see more of what happens to Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
We were just
Yeah.
saying this. Yes,
I
So-
love her
Asajj is
new
back,
look.
Like,
I
what
love her new
happened?
look.
She's got
It's so
the-
awesome. Yeah,
Yes.
I need an action figure of that.
Yes.
I was
I
like,
said
I'm
that when we
surprised.
were
Like, I
recording
have
the other one.
Legos. Like I have so many Legos on the other side of the
Yeah.
wall. I just built the Ghost ship last weekend.
Nice.
I was like, wow, I don't have an Asajj Ventress Lego
I've
figure.
never
which is
seen her at a MegaCon or anything.
surprising. And
Yeah.
any Comic Cons with all the Lego figures,
Yeah.
never
I
once have I
got
seen
Cad
Asajj
Bane
Ventress.
right here, and I don't
Right.
have Asajj.
You have the most random Jedi Lego
She's in,
figures,
Right.
but there's
isn't
never
she
been
in
an
Clone Wars more
Asajj.
than he is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although, yeah.
Oh yeah.
but I'm with you because it's like, well, she's not dead; she's resurrected. Where does her story go? Because clearly she's still alive. Quinlan's still alive in
Quinlan's still
Kenobi.
alive.
Right.
Like, where does their story go? They profess love. He thinks
Yeah.
she's dead. She's not. Like,
Right.
I'm
They're
with
out there
you
saving
100%.
And
I
we
need to
got
see
nods to if I remember right, we got nods to Quinlan in the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah.
Yep. He was
So-
saving people, yeah,
Right.
because they
And
saw his name on the
Jedi
wall. Yeah.
recruitment
Yeah.
temple or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm.
So-
And
I,
he acted shocked too. Quinlan. Like I
Quinlan
remember
felt-
that.
Yeah,
distinct.
yeah.
he's like, well, he survived Order 66 because he didn't.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
man. It's.
So there's so much story to still tell, and I'm here for all of it.
I am. I'm with you. I will consume anything and everything Star Wars, no matter what it is, no matter where it is. Like, there's so much. There's time. That's the beauty of Star Wars. We're getting the Acolyte in June,
Yeah.
which is set in the High Republic era. So we
Yeah.
get the Sith at the height of their power. We get the Jedi at the height of their power. This is starting the downfall of the Jedi. It's just like there's so much to be excited for.
And I am so excited for Tales of the Empire because I adored Tales of the Jedi.
Yes,
that
same.
was so good, and every episode kept getting better and better. And I'm like, like I saw Tales of the Empire. I'm like, oh, this is going to be
and
amazing.
it's focused on like Barriss, and then
Right.
like my whole thought process is like Vader's Anakin. Barriss is the reason why everything kind of started to snowball. What's his reaction going to be to Barriss being trained as an Inquisitor? Like, dude, there's so many things. I can't wait. I really can't wait. And before we wrap things up, because it's about that time, I had to. I had to. I got a box today. So for some reason, I don't know how I did this. I became friends with the marketing person.
Because every time you go to the movies,
Crunch.
you tag them because you love them.
This is my favorite candy, Crunch. So they hit me up on Twitter. It's like, we're going to send you something. So I'm going to open this box real quick. Of course, I know what's in it already. I kind of posted.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? Well, there's a lot of stuff in the box, first of all. So if you don't know what to do with your movie night, this is like a movie genre, spin the wheel. First of all, they sent a collapsible popcorn bucket.
Nice.
Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
My favorite candy of all time, Bunch of Crunch. Come on now. I got Crunch socks.
That's amazing.
Now, do they crunch when you walk in them? Is the
I don't know.
question.
They have the little grips on them, so I guess I can wear them.
Oh, they're like totes.
Yeah.
Like the ones they give you at the hospital.
They sent me a Crunch blanket in this box.
Ooh, that's
there
an
you go.
ultimate
And then,
movie watching package.
This is like popcorn. There's 3 bags of popcorn in here.
Nice.
So
With
like,
chocolate in it? Wait, is it microwave popcorn?
It's just microwave popcorn. You're supposed to put the Bunch of Crunch in it, but
So what are you
yes.
gonna watch while you open all that?
I don't
Maybe
know.
Star Wars Episode 2 after you see Phantom Menace.
Honestly, I might go see Phantom Menace in theaters again, and then since it's May the 4th this weekend, I might watch, have a Star Wars marathon. I might cuddle in my Crunch blanket and kind of go from there.
And I know you were mentioning. I know you were mentioning earlier. Free Comic Book Day. There are 2 Star Wars titles coming out on Free Comic Book Day.
There are. Well, since you brought it up, let people know what they are.
So there's Star Wars, the main title, and then there's Young Jedi Academy, if I'm remembering if that's the exact name. So.
Oh, is that one off the cartoon? I actually haven't looked because I knew I was
going
so I was just okay. We'll get whatever it is. Nice.
But there's a lot of really good stuff. Saturday is Free Comic Book Day. It's also our holy day, May the 4th.
Although it's on a freaking Saturday, so I won't be at Hollywood Studios this year for the first time in like 3 years.
Oh, wow.
I feel bad for you.
I have a peasant pass and I can't go to Disney on a Saturday.
Oh no! I'm gonna go to your local brewery. Like, your local brewery's probably having a lot of events. I'm gonna go to.
They're doing a Star Wars pub crawl at the breweries in Sanford.
Yeah,
nice.
I'll be down in Norfolk, Virginia Beach. I'm gonna be going to some breweries down there. A couple friends and I are gonna be going to Star Wars trivia, which
my kids watch.
I've been quizzing them all week. So if they get this shit wrong, they're dead to me. Just know that. Although I'm going to carry the team. Like, let's be honest. Like, they're just there to socially drink with, so I'm not by myself.
Star Wars trivia is hard.
Depending.
Right after I watched everything, my cousin and I went and we're like, we got this. And I was like, oh my gosh, some of the questions.
It can be hard, depending. But I'm excited.
I went to a Star Wars night for the Cleveland Cavs. I'm up in up in the Cleveland area, and they would give shirts away that said Star Wars Night on the back, and it had the Cavs on the front. And they would give shirts away if you could answer Star Wars trivia. Ooh. And I made the mistake. I still got it right, but because they thought they were giving me a hard question, and they weren't. But not for a Star Wars fan, at least. But they were like, "Do you know Star Wars?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I love Star Wars." They're like, "All right, we got to find a hard one for you." I was like, "Damn, I should have said no."
No, I don't know. Who is Darth Vader's son?
Right. So the question was, what is the name of the crystal used to make lightsabers?
Oh my god,
Kyber crystal.
Yeah, that was it. And he thought it was hard because he didn't know what it was, and I was like, "Oh, Kyber!" Like, I really thought he was going to give me something like ridiculously challenging.
Oh god, I'm gonna be so hard. Like, oh god, and he goes, "What's that?" And you're like, "Oh, Kyber," and he's like.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like, who was the boom operator in Empire Strikes Back?
So some of the tiebreaker questions I've seen were like, how many minutes was this movie? Or if you combine the original trilogy, how many minutes?
See, that would have been hard, but
no, thank
you.
you.
Kyber crystal, come on, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, we did terrible at Star Wars trivia, yet like 2 months later, I single-handedly by myself won MCU trivia. So that I feel like that goes to the level of how much Star Wars fans like.
Yeah, you have to really.
What'd you win though? What'd they give you? Because I remember Cleveland doing that.
Gift card.
No. Like, what did Ryan? Because
Oh, yeah,
one of my friends I'm actually going out Saturday with. She's from Cleveland. She goes back like monthly.
Yeah, I got a T-shirt that had the
That's
Star
it?
Wars. It had Star Wars Day on it. It's a T-shirt for just answering
that's
a
a free
question.
My
T-shirt.
gift card to the brewery was way better.
That's a free T-shirt right there. That's all. Yeah,
it's a free shirt for just answering Kyber Crystal. I can't really knock that at all.
Funny when you mentioned some of the stuff they changed not for the good when they redid the movies. I'm actually wearing a Greedo quick draw shirt.
Yeah.
So,
the question I had to answer to get out of work early when I was deployed last was how many languages is C-3PO fluent in? Over 9 million. And so like we got that right, and that's how I got to get out of work early to get tickets to go see episode 7 at the only theater on the little base there that we were stationed at. Nice. And everything like that. So I love that. They're like, they think it's the hardest thing ever, and then you're just like, come on, man. But as we kind of wrap up, go ahead. No, go ahead. What do you got? I
had some random guy ask if I could name all the Avengers on my purse one time.
I remember that.
Wow. I didn't even answer. I just stared at him. I didn't understand the question.
As we wrap up, though, Ryan, dude, if it isn't clear as day, folks, I am gonna have Ryan's gonna come back because we
have to talk the Star Wars Christmas special.
Star Wars, we've got a lot of good stuff coming on. But Ryan, as we kind of wrap up, remind folks where they can find you, where they can find Stealth Hammer.
Yeah, so just go to stealthhammer.com, and if you go to Kickstarter and search Stealth Hammer, you'll see 3 Kickstarters out there because we've done 2 issues before, but there's one that's currently active until May 7th. And so that's the one you're going to want to go to. If you've never checked out Stealth Hammer before, don't worry. Issues 1 and 2 are available in the Kickstarter for issue 3. You can either find a reward, which has we have a starter pack one where you can get all 3 issues. Or if you pick something else that doesn't have issues 1 and 2 and you want those, they are in the add-on area. So so we make it very easy for someone to jump into the world of Stealth Hammer and check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, do it. Trust me. You're going to want to go there. Check it out. This Saturday is Free Comic Book Day. Now, there's going to be a table at your comic book shop. They're going to have a lot of good pools for Free Comic Book Day. But aside from that, browse the shelves, man. Check out what your comic book shops have to offer because you never know what your next favorite comic book might be. They're not always going to be superheroes. They're not always going to be Star Wars. They're not always going to be whatever. You can have things like Minor Threats. You can have things like Space Ghost by David Pepose. You're going to have lots of, maybe you will have the bigger things like Flash Annual #1 or
Weapon X-Men's really good.
Weapon X-Men's out right now. Or, Something is Killing the Children's back out or Spectrograph from Distillery. Lots of good.
Or if you want to go into my world of the 1980s stuff, the Energon universe by Skybound
Transformers
is some of the best stuff. Transformers, they have Duke and Cobra Commander. They're about to come out with the
Astro
and Scarlet series.
Transformers 8 actually drops on Wednesday of next week. Yes.
Yeah. So
it's
been incredible stuff.
Do it. Those Duke has been great. Cobra Commander has been great. And then Transformers has been absolutely insane by Daniel Warren Johnson. Yeah. Insane. I cannot tell you guys. But Ryan, dude, I can't wait to chat with you again, man. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for reaching out to us. I'm
Thanks
glad
for having me on. I was so happy when I heard back from you guys. I was just like, oh, this is a show I need to get on. And then you guys responded back and I was like, yes. So I was looking forward to this all day. I'm so glad I was on here.
Absolute pleasure. Everybody find Ryan and then find us. Like, subscribe, share. You know the deal. We say it enough. Makes you feel like I'm a teenage kid again. And then Star Wars, man. Star Wars month is in full swing. So on Monday, we are dropping the Dark Disciple episode. The following week, we are going to be talking about our 5 most favorite Star Wars characters, our 5 most overrated Star Wars characters. We might have a Cantina hour next week. More to come. I know it won't be Thursday because we both have prior engagements, but the only way you're going to know if there's a Cantina hour is to subscribe, follow us on social media.
Sometimes we don't know that day.
I won't know either. We just got to figure out our schedules, busy lives. It's kind of how that is as a parent. But thanks again, Ryan, for hanging out with us. Everybody else, may the force be with you, man. Always.